The sun hung like a molten coin in the Arizona sky, burning everything it touched. August 1873. The kind of heat that made men see things that weren't there, made them do things they'd regret. Jesse Hawthorne wiped the sweat from his eyes with a grimy sleeve, squinting through the shimmer rising off the canyon floor. Behind him, Dutch McCready coughed a wet, rattling sound that had been getting worse since Tucson. The third man, Billy Younger, kept his peace, watching their back trail with those cold gray eyes that never seemed to blink. They'd been riding hard for 3 days, the posse somewhere behind them in the dust. The bank job in Prescott had gone sideways, $2,000 in gold certificates tucked in Jesse's saddlebags, but Dutch had caught a bullet in the lung for it. Not worth it. Never was. "Smoke," Billy said, his first word in hours. Jesse followed his gaze. Black tendrils rose from the valley below. Too thick for a campfire, too isolated for a homestead. His gut tightened. Out here, smoke meant trouble. "Could go around," Dutch wheezed. "Could," Jesse agreed. But going around meant adding miles, and Dutch didn't have miles left in him. The blood on his shirt had gone from bright red to rust brown, spreading like spilled coffee across the fabric. They picked their way down the rocky slope, horses' hooves sending pebbles skittering into the void. The smell hit them first, burning wood and something else, something that made Jesse's stomach turn. A wagon train, or what was left of one. 3 wagons scattered like broken toys. One still smoldered, its canvas top gone, wooden ribs exposed like the carcass of some great beast. Bodies lay where they'd fallen. Men, women, Apache work, by the look of it, though the tribes had been mostly quiet since the army started their patrols. "Jesus," Dutch muttered. Jesse dismounted, hand on his Colt. The silence pressed against his ears, broken only by the creak of cooling wood and the buzz of flies already gathering. He'd seen plenty of death in his 32 years, but it never got easier. A sound, soft, almost lost in the wind. He froze, listening. There again, coming from the middle wagon, the one with its wheels buried axle-deep in sand. Jesse approached slow, gun drawn. The wagon bed was a mess of scattered belongings, clothes, tools, a Bible with its pages fluttering like dying birds. And in the corner, half hidden under a torn quilt, movement. A woman, still breathing, though not for long. She was maybe 25, dark hair matted with blood, her calico dress torn and stained. But it was what she held that made Jesse's breath catch a bundle wrapped in a yellow blanket, clutched tight against her chest. Her eyes found his, wide and desperate. "Please," she whispered, lips cracked and bleeding. Jesse holstered his gun, climbed into the wagon. Up close, he could see the wounds. Too many, too deep. She was holding on by will alone. "My husband," she said, "is he—" Jesse glanced out at the bodies. A man in miner's clothes lay 10 feet away, a pickaxe still gripped in his hand. "I'm sorry, ma'am." A sob escaped her, but she pressed her lips tight, swallowing the rest. The bundle in her arms stirred, and Jesse realized what he was looking at. A baby. Couldn't be more than 3 months old. "You have to take him." The words came out in a rush, like she was afraid she'd run out of time before she could say them all. "Please, there's no one else." Jesse stepped back. "Ma'am, I can't—" "Listen to me." Her voice grew stronger, fierce. "His name is Thomas James Garrett. His father's people are in San Francisco, the Garrett Import Company. They have money. They'll reward you." "It ain't about money." Her hand shot out, surprisingly strong, gripping his wrist. "Promise me." Billy appeared at the wagon's edge, taking in the scene with those flat eyes. Dutch had managed to dismount, leaning heavy against his horse. "Jesse," Billy said, just the name, but Jesse heard the warning in it. They couldn't stay here. The smoke would draw others' army patrols, Apache scouts, or worse, the posse that was surely still hunting them. The woman's grip tightened. Blood bubbled at the corner of her mouth. "Promise me he'll live." Jesse looked down at the baby. Blue eyes, like his mother's. A tiny fist had worked free of the blanket, waving at nothing. Christ, what kind of man left a baby to die in the desert? "I promise," he heard himself say. Something in her face changed then. Relief. Maybe, or just the letting go. She pressed her lips to the baby's forehead, whispered something Jesse couldn't catch. Then she held out the bundle. Jesse took it. The weight surprised him so light, like holding a bird. "There's a locket," she said, voice fading. "In my pocket, for him, when he's older." Jesse found it a simple gold oval on a thin chain. Inside, 2 photographs, the woman and her husband, looking young and hopeful in their Sunday best. "Tell him." She was struggling now, each word a battle. "Tell him we loved him. Tell him we tried to give him a better life." Her eyes fixed on something past Jesse's shoulder. The breath went out of her in a long sigh, and she was gone. Jesse stood there, holding the baby, feeling the weight of what he'd just done. Outside, Dutch coughed again, harsh and wet. "We need to move," Billy said. Jesse looked around the wagon, found a can of condensed milk, unopened, a few clean cloths, a leather water bag. Still half full, he bundled them together, moving automatic, trying not to think. "Jesse?" Billy's voice carried an edge now. "We can't take that child." "Already did. It'll slow us down. Dutch is dying. We got law on our tail and Apache in these hills. That baby is a death sentence." Jesse climbed down from the wagon, careful with his burden. The baby hadn't made a sound, just stared up at him with those serious blue eyes. "Maybe," Jesse said, "but I gave my word." Dutch laughed. Or tried to. It came out as more blood than sound. "Always were too soft. Hawthorne, going to get us all killed." Maybe, but Jesse had made plenty of promises in his life. Broken, most of them. This one he'd keep. They mounted up. Jesse awkward with the baby tucked inside his coat. The desert stretched out before them, an ocean of rock and sand and thorns. Somewhere behind them, men with guns and badges. Somewhere ahead, maybe salvation, maybe just more death. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry. Jesse looked down at the tiny face, already red from the sun. "Hush now. Thomas," he said, the name strange on his tongue. "We got a long way to go." They rode out of the valley as the sun began its slide toward the horizon. 3 outlaws and a baby, leaving the dead behind for the coyotes and the wind. The smoke from the burning wagon followed them for miles, a black finger pointing at the sky, marking the place where one life ended and another began. Jesse didn't look back. In his experience, looking back only showed you what you'd lost. Better to keep your eyes on the trail ahead, no matter how rough it got. The baby slept against his chest, trusting in the arms of a killer to keep him safe. And Jesse Hawthorne, bank robber and wanted man, found himself praying for the first time in years. Not for himself, not even for Dutch, wheezing and swaying in his saddle. For the promise he'd made to a dying woman, and the child who'd never know her name. The woman's hand fell limp, sliding off the wagon's edge like an autumn leaf. Jesse stood there, the baby warm against his chest, watching the light fade from her eyes. Blood pooled beneath her, soaking into the splintered wood, turning black in the desert heat. "She's gone," he said, though nobody needed telling. Dutch spat blood into the sand. "Good. Now put that child down and let's ride." Jesse turned, something hard crystallizing in his gut. "I gave my word." "Your word," Dutch laughed, ugly and wet. "Since when does Jesse Hawthorne's word mean spit you promised that widow in Tombstone you'd come back? You promise every saloon girl from here to Missouri you'll marry them come spring." "This is different," Dead is dead, boy. That woman can't hold you to nothing now. Billy hadn't moved from his position by the wagon wheel, watching the horizon. Always watching. Posse's maybe 4 hours back, he said quiet. Less if they push hard. Jesse looked down at the bundle in his arms. The baby's eyes were closed now, tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. The yellow blanket was soft, store-bought. Some woman had picked it out special, thinking about her baby wrapped up safe and warm. Now that woman was bleeding out in a broken wagon, and her baby was in the arms of a man who'd killed 6 men and robbed twice that many banks. There's milk in here, Jesse said, pulling the can from his pocket. And water. We can make it work. Make it work. Dutch swayed in his saddle, gripping the horn white-knuckled. I got a bullet grinding against my ribs, and you want to play nursemaid? Jesse climbed into the wagon one more time. The woman's hands were still positioned like she was holding something precious, though they held only air now. He pulled the torn quilt over her face, gentle as he could manage. Found her husband's name on a letter in the scattered mail, Samuel Garrett, originally from Connecticut, a miner trying to make his fortune out west, like so many others. Now he was face down in the alkali dust, his dreams as dead as he was. There was more in the wagon. A small leather satchel with baby things, clean cloths for diapers, a few tiny shirts, a wooden rattle painted blue. Jesse took it all. In a wooden box beneath the driver's seat, he found something else. Money. Not much. Maybe $40 in coins and bills. He pocketed that too. The dead had no use for it, and the living, especially this particular baby, would need every cent. Jesse! Billy's voice carried warning now. I'm coming. He climbed down, adjusting the baby against his chest. His horse, a rangy bay gelding named Scratch, snorted and danced sideways at the unfamiliar bundle. Easy now, Jesse murmured, one hand on the reins, one securing the child. Just a little extra cargo. They rode out slow, picking their way through the carnage. Jesse counted 12 bodies total. The Apache had been thorough but quick. No torture, no lingering. Just death, swift and sure. In its own way, it was a mercy. The sun was falling toward the western mountains, painting the clouds red as fresh meat. They needed shelter, water, and Jesse needed to figure out how to keep a baby alive in country that killed grown men regular as clockwork. There's a box canyon about 6 miles north, Billy said. Spring-fed pool, good cover. Jesse nodded. 6 miles. Might as well be 60 with Dutch barely staying in the saddle and a baby that would need feeding soon. But you played the cards you were dealt. They rode in silence. The only sounds Dutch's labored breathing and the creak of leather. The baby slept, miraculous in its peace. Jesse found himself checking every few minutes, making sure that little chest still moved. The canyon was where Billy said it would be, a crack in the earth barely wide enough for horses' single file, opening into a bowl of red rock with cottonwoods clustered around a pool of green water. Someone had used it before there were old fire rings, and initials carved into the smooth bark of the largest tree. Jesse dismounted careful, cradling the baby. Dutch pretty much fell from his horse, Billy catching him before he hit ground. Get a fire going, Jesse said. Small one, and boil some water. Since when do you give the orders? Dutch growled. But there was no heat in it. He was fading fast, skin gone the color of old paper. Jesse found a smooth spot near the water, spread out his bedroll one-handed. The baby was starting to fuss. Little mewling sounds that would turn to real crying soon enough. $40 wouldn't last long. But those gold certificates in his saddlebags, blood money from the Prescott job, would set this child up proper in San Francisco, if they lived that long. Billy had a fire crackling in minutes, efficient as always. Jesse set water to boil in his coffee pot, then tried to figure out the milk. The can had instructions printed on the side, but they assumed you had proper tools, not just a dirty coffee cup and hope. 1 part milk to 2 parts water. He read aloud. How the hell do you measure parts? Dutch, propped against a rock, managed a wheezing laugh. Lord above, Jesse Hawthorne trying to make baby formula. I've lived too long. The baby's fussing grew louder. Jesse mixed what looked right, dipped his finger in to test the temperature like he'd seen his sister do years back, before she died of the fever. The baby latched onto his finger, sucking fierce. Hungry little fellow, Billy observed. He'd positioned himself where he could watch both entrances to the canyon. Going to be trouble when he really starts wailing. Jesse soaked a clean cloth in the milk mixture. Let the baby suck on that. It wasn't perfect, but Thomas Strange, how natural the name came, now seemed satisfied enough. His eyes opened again, that startling blue, staring up at Jesse like he was trying to memorize his face. Your mama was brave. Jesse told him quiet. Brave as any man I've known. And your daddy died fighting. That's something, I guess. The stars came out one by one, bright as bullet holes in black cloth. Dutch's breathing got rougher as the night wore on. Billy produced a bottle of whiskey from his saddlebags, and they passed it around, even giving Dutch a few sips to ease the pain. You know this is foolish, Billy said eventually. Baby needs proper care, woman's care. We could leave him at the next settlement. With what story 3 wanted men found him by the road? Jesse shook his head. They'd have the law on us before we cleared town. So what's your plan then? Jesse looked down at Thomas, who'd fallen asleep again, milk drying on his tiny lips. San Francisco. Like she said, find his people. That's 800 miles, through desert and mountains and God knows what else, with a posse behind us and Dutch dying. I know what it is. Billy was quiet for a long moment. Then, I ever tell you why I ride with you? Hawthorne. Jesse looked up. Surprised, Billy never talked personal. You're the only man I've known who's worse at being an outlaw than he is at being decent. You rob banks but leave IOUs. You shoot men but say prayers over their bodies. And now this. He gestured at the baby. A promise to a dying woman you'd never met before. That make me a fool. Maybe. But it makes you something else, too. Billy stood, checking his rifle. I'll take first watch. The night deepened. Coyotes called from the rim rocks, and something big cat maybe coughed in the darkness beyond the firelight. Thomas woke twice more, and each time Jesse fed him the milk mixture, changed the makeshift diaper, held him until he settled. Dutch's breathing went quiet just before dawn. Jesse had been dozing, the baby across his chest. When the silence woke him, he knew before he looked. Death had a quality to it, an absence that filled space. Billy was already there, closing Dutch's eyes. He's gone. They buried him as the sun came up, deep as they could manage in the sandy soil. Jesse said a few words from memory while Billy piled rocks on the grave. Dutch McCready, aged 41, bank robber and horse thief. Not much of a life. When you tallied it up, but he'd ridden with them for 3 years. And that counted for something. He was right, you know, Billy said as they saddled up. This is foolish. I know. We'll likely die trying. I know that too. Billy swung into his saddle, that rare smile cracking his weathered face. Well then, let's get dying. They rode out of the canyon as the morning sun painted the rocks gold. 2 men and a baby, carrying a fortune in stolen certificates and a promise made in blood. Behind them, one more grave in a land full of graves. Ahead, 800 miles of hard country and slim hope. Jesse looked down at Thomas, secure in his makeshift sling. Your mama wanted you to live, he said. So that's what we're going to do. You and me and Billy, we're going to live. The baby's hand curled around Jesse's finger, holding tight. They rode west into the rising day. The fire crackled low, throwing dancing shadows against the canyon walls. Jesse sat cross-legged on his bedroll, the baby cradled awkward in his arms. Thomas was crying again, had been for the better part of an hour, and nothing Jesse tried seemed to help. He's hungry, Billy said from where he kept watch, rifle across his knees. I fed him twice already. Maybe the milk's too thin or too thick, or maybe he just knows you ain't his mama." Jesse gritted his teeth, bouncing the baby gentle as he could. His arms ached, his back hurt from holding himself careful, and he'd have traded all the gold in his saddlebags for 5 minutes of quiet. The night pressed in around them, full of small sounds whined through the rocks, the distant yip of coyotes, the restless movement of the horses. They'd made maybe 15 miles from where they'd buried Dutch, stopping early when Jesse couldn't figure out how to hold the baby and manage his horse through a particularly treacherous stretch of trail. "Here," Billy said suddenly, standing. "Give him to me." Jesse looked up, surprised. In 3 years of riding together, he'd never seen Billy show interest in anything softer than gun steel. "You know about babies." Had 6 younger siblings back in Missouri. Helped raise half of them before I lit out. Billy set his rifle aside, held out his hands. "Come on, before he wakes every Apache in the territory." Jesse passed Thomas over, watching as Billy settled the baby against his shoulder, one big hand supporting the tiny head. He started walking, a slow rhythm, patting the baby's back gentle. "The trick," Billy said quiet, "is you gotta move like you got somewhere to be, purposeful. Babies can tell when you're nervous." Sure enough, Thomas's crying eased to hiccups, then silence. His tiny fist clutched at Billy's shirt, and his eyes started to droop. "I'll be damned," Jesse muttered. "Probably, but not for this." Billy kept walking, his circuit taking him around their small camp. "You want to tell me why you really took this child?" Jesse poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling up. "I told you, gave my word." "You've broken your word before. We both have. It's what men like us do." "Maybe I'm tired of being what I am." Billy made another circuit, considering. "That why you left those IOUs at the banks trying to balance the ledger?" "Something like that." "Doesn't work that way. Jesse, good deeds don't wash out the bad. A man kills another man. He's a killer forever. No amount of orphan raising changes that." Jesse knew it was true. He had 6 names written in a little book in his pocket, the men he'd killed over the years. 2 in self-defense, 3 in robberies gone bad, 1 in a stupid saloon fight over cards. He remembered each face, each moment when the light went out of their eyes. "Maybe not," he said finally. "But this child didn't ask to be born into violence. Didn't ask to lose his folks. If I can get him somewhere safe, maybe that counts for something." "To who God?" Billy's laugh was soft, bitter. "God stopped paying attention to men like us long ago." Thomas was full asleep now, his weight barely noticeable against Billy's broad chest. Billy kept walking anyway, seemed to find some peace in the motion. "Tell me about your people," Jesse said. "The siblings." Billy's face went distant. "Why?" "Because we might die tomorrow, and I realize I don't know nothing about you except you're good with a gun and you don't snore." For a long moment, Jesse thought Billy wouldn't answer. Then, farm family, outside independence. Daddy grew corn and beat his children with equal enthusiasm. Mama had a baby every year like clockwork until her body gave out. I was the oldest boy, so I got the strap most often. Tried to keep it off the young ones. "What happened?" "Daddy came at my sister Rose with a branching iron one night. She was 13, spilled milk at supper. I shot him." Billy's voice stayed flat. "Matter of fact. Buried him in the cornfield and left that same night. That was 15 years ago." Jesse absorbed this, understanding more about Billy's silences now. "You ever go back?" "Once, 5 years later. House was empty, windows boarded. Neighbors said the bank took the farm. Family scattered to the wind." He stopped walking, stood staring out into the darkness. "Never did find out what happened to Rose." The fire popped, sending up a shower of sparks. Jesse added another piece of wood, careful not to build it too high. Light carried far in the desert, and they couldn't afford to be found. "Why'd you save me that time in Tucson?" Jesse asked. "Could have ridden on, left me to hang." Billy looked down at the sleeping baby. then back at Jesse. "Because you're the only person I've ridden with who still acts like people matter, even when you're robbing them." He moved back to the fire, lowered himself careful to keep from waking Thomas. "Here, your turn." Jesse took the baby, marveling at how peaceful he looked now, in sleep. Thomas's face lost its serious expression, became just what he was, an innocent caught up in a violent world. "We'll need supplies," Billy said, back to practical matters. "Real baby bottles, more milk, proper cloths for diapers. Can't keep tearing up our shirts." "There's a trading post at Willow Springs. 2 days' ride, if we push. If the posse hasn't been there first." "It's off the main trail. Mostly serves the Mexican sheep herders. Might be safe enough." Billy nodded, retrieved his rifle. "Get some sleep. I'll wake you at midnight." But Jesse couldn't sleep. He lay on his bedroll, Thomas beside him wrapped careful in the yellow blanket, and watched the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere out there, men were hunting them. Somewhere behind, Dutch lay cold in his sandy grave. And somewhere ahead, in a city Jesse had never seen, people named Garrett waited for news of their family. The baby stirred, making small sounds. Jesse touched the soft hair, fine as corn silk, and found himself thinking about his sister. Mary had been just 20 when the fever took her own baby girl dying 2 days later. He'd been 17, wild and angry, and he'd run from that grief straight into the outlaw life. Maybe Billy was right. Maybe good deeds couldn't wash out the bad. But holding this child, feeling the trust in that tiny grip, Jesse thought maybe the point wasn't washing anything out. Maybe it was just about doing the next right thing. And then the next, until you ran out of chances. A sound made him tense horses, moving slow through the rocks above. Jesse's hand found his Colt, and he saw Billy had already melted into the shadows, rifle ready. The sounds came closer, then stopped. Jesse held his breath, one hand on the baby to keep him quiet. Long minutes passed. Then a voice called out, "Speaking Apache." Jesse's blood went cold. If it was the same band that hit the wagon train. But the voice called again, and this time another answered from the opposite rim. They were surrounded. Billy materialized beside him, moving silent as smoke. 6, maybe 7, he breathed. They know we're here. Jesse's mind raced. They couldn't run, not in the dark through unknown country. Couldn't fight, not with those numbers and the high ground against them. Thomas chose that moment to wake, letting out a thin wail that seemed to echo off every rock in the canyon. The Apache voices went silent. Jesse picked up the baby, stood slow with his hands visible. "We got no quarrel with you," he called out in Spanish. Some of the Apache spoke it. He knew. Silence. Then, from the darkness above, a figure appeared. An old man, hair gray as ash, wearing traditional dress mixed with white man's clothing. He carried a rifle but held it loose, unthreatening. The old man's eyes went from Jesse to the baby, lingering there. He said something in Apache, and 2 younger men materialized beside him, weapons ready but not aimed. "White men should not be here," the old man said in accented English. "This is sacred ground." "We didn't know," Jesse said. "We'll leave come morning." The old man started down the steep trail, moving sure despite the darkness. His companions stayed above, watching. When he reached the fire, he studied Jesse's face, then Billy's, then looked again at Thomas. "The child is from the wagons," he said, not a question. Jesse nodded. "We did not kill them. Mexican bandits, dressed like Apache to throw off pursuit. We found them after..." He squatted by the fire, joints popping. "Why do you have the child?" "His mother asked me to save him before she died." The old man studied Jesse for a long moment. Then he reached into a pouch at his waist, pulled out something wrapped in soft leather. "For the child," he said, holding it out. Jesse took it, unwrapped it careful. Inside was a small amulet, a piece of turquoise wrapped in silver wire. "For protection," the old man said. "The child has already seen too much death. This will help him forget." He stood, dignified despite his worn clothing. "Leave at first light. Travel north through Devil's Canyon, then west. The men hunting you went south, following false trail." A ghost of a smile touched his weathered face. "My grandson laid it. He is very clever." "Why help us?" Billy asked, speaking for the first time. The old man looked at Thomas, sleeping again in Jesse's arms. "Because a man who saves a child is not the same as a man who robs and kills. The spirits know the difference." He turned to go, then paused. "The child will need a name." "Thomas," Jesse said. "His name is Thomas." "No." The old man shook his head. "That was his name in the old life. For the new life, he needs a new name, one that tells his story." I promised his mother, "Keep the promise, but give him also a name for strength. In our tongue, we would call him he who survived the fire. In your tongue." He thought, "Samuel. It means God has heard. A good name for one saved from death." Samuel? Jesse tested it in his mind. Samuel Thomas Garrett, Tom for every day, Sam when he was older. It felt right somehow. The old man climbed back up the trail, vanishing into the darkness like he'd never been. His companions followed, silent as shadows. Jesse and Billy sat by the dying fire, not speaking for a long time. "Sam," Billy said finally. "I like it." Jesse touched the turquoise amulet, then tucked it safe in the baby's blanket. First the locket from his mother, now this. Sam was collecting protections, gathering blessings from unlikely sources. Maybe that's what they all were, unlikely sources of grace in a hard world. An outlaw keeping a promise, a killer showing gentleness, an Apache blessing a white child. "Get some sleep," Billy said. "We ride at first light, like the man said." This time Jesse did sleep, the newly named Sam warm against his chest, while Billy kept watch and the stars turned overhead, marking time until dawn. The desert stretched endless before them, a sea of sand and stone beneath a sun that seemed personal in its hatred. 5 days out from the canyon, and their water was running low. The last spring had been dry, just a depression in the rocks with white alkali stains showing where water used to be. Jesse adjusted Sam in his makeshift sling. The baby's weight familiar now against his chest. The child had adapted to the trail better than expected, sleeping through the worst of the heat, waking only to feed. But Jesse could see the toll it was taking. Sam's skin had a flush to it that worried him, and his cry had grown weaker. Billy rode ahead, searching for any sign of water or shade. His broad shoulders were hunched against the heat, and salt stains marked his shirt like a map of their suffering. They'd been pushing hard, following the old Apache's advice through Devil's Canyon and then west. The route had kept them clear of the posse, but it was harder going game trails and dry washes instead of proper roads. "There," Billy called back, pointing. "Rocks, might be shade." It wasn't much a cluster of boulders big as houses, tumbled together by some ancient catastrophe, but they cast shadows, blessed darkness in the killing light. Jesse dismounted careful, legs shaky from hours in the saddle. "How's our water?" Billy asked, though he knew the answer. "Maybe 2 swallows left. Sam needs it more than we do." Billy nodded. Didn't argue. They'd both been giving their rations to mix the baby's milk. Jesse's tongue felt like leather in his mouth, and he'd stopped sweating hours ago. Bad sign. They settled in the largest shadow, Jesse unwrapping Sam to check him over. The baby's eyes opened. That bright blue dimmed now, looking at Jesse with trust that cut deep. "Hey there, little man," Jesse whispered. "Just a bit farther. Just hold on." He mixed the last of the water with milk, careful not to spill a drop. Sam drank slow, like even that was an effort. When he finished, Jesse rewrapped him in the yellow blanket, now gray with trail dust. "I'll scout ahead," Billy said. "Might be water in those hills. Together or not at all," Jesse said. "We already lost Dutch. I won't lose you too." Billy's smile was more grimace than anything. "Getting sentimental. Hawthorne. Maybe." They rested through the worst of the afternoon heat, dozing fitful in the shade. Jesse dreamed of water rivers of it, lakes, rain falling cool on his burned skin. He woke to find Sam watching him, those serious eyes studying his face. "Your mama would have done better by you," Jesse told him quiet. "She'd have got you to San Francisco in a proper wagon, with proper supplies, not dragging you through hell with a couple of broken-down outlaws." Sam's tiny hand reached out, fingers grasping at air. Jesse gave him a knuckle to hold, marveling again at the strength in that little grip. The sun was starting its descent when Billy suddenly tensed. "Riders," he said, already reaching for his rifle. Jesse heard them 2 horses moving fast, too fast for this heat unless they were desperate or chasing something. He tucked Sam deeper into the rocks, checked his Colt. 3 men came into view, riding hard from the east. Not Law, their clothes were too rough, their formation too loose. Jesse recognized the type. Scavengers, the kind who followed trouble, picking the bones of whatever the desert left behind. They slowed when they saw the rock formation, one pointing. They'd spotted the horses. "Stay with Sam," Jesse said, standing. "Jesse!" "They're after the horses and whatever we're carrying. They see a baby. They'll know we're easy marks." He stepped out from the rocks, hands visible but ready. "I'll talk. You watch." The riders approached careful now, spreading out. The leader was a thin man with a face like dried meat, eyes that never stopped moving. "Afternoon," he called out, friendly as a rattlesnake. "Afternoon," Jesse replied. "Hot day for traveling. Most days are." The thin man smiled, showing brown teeth. "You boys look a mite parched. We got water, willing to trade." Jesse's throat clenched at the word water, but he kept his face neutral. "What kind of trade?" "Well, now, depends what you're carrying." The man's eyes flicked to the horses, the saddlebags. "Gold certificates. Maybe heard there was a bank job in Prescott recent. Substantial take." So they knew, probably following the posse's trail, hoping to catch whoever they were chasing. "Don't know nothing about any bank job," Jesse said. "Course not." The thin man shifted in his saddle, and Jesse saw his hand move closer to his gun. "Still, might be you're carrying something worth our water. Why don't you let us have a look? Why don't you ride on—" The friendly mask slipped. "3 of us, 1 of you. Your partner there in the rocks might get 1 of us, but not all 3. Why die thirsty when we can all be friends?" "From the rocks," Sam let out a thin cry. Just a small sound, but it carried in the still air. The thin man's eyes lit up. "Well now, what have we here?" Jesse stepped sideways, putting himself between the riders and the rocks. "Nothing that concerns you." "Baby? Sounds like— Now that's interesting. Man traveling through hell with a baby must have a powerful reason. Must be worth something to someone." The other 2 riders were moving, trying to flank. Jesse heard Billy shifting position in the rocks, finding his shot. "Last warning," Jesse said. "Ride on." The thin man laughed. "Boy, you ain't in no position to warn nobody, but I'll make you a deal. Give us the gold and whatever else you're carrying, and we'll leave you water. Even let you keep the brat. Fair trade." Jesse saw it in the man's eyes, the decision already made. They'd take everything and leave them to die, baby included. Men like this didn't leave witnesses. "Billy," Jesse said quiet. The rifle cracked from the rocks. The rider on the left flew backward off his horse, chest blooming red. Jesse drew and fired in one motion, his bullet catching the thin man in the shoulder, spinning him around. The third rider had his gun half drawn when Jesse's second shot took him center mass. He folded over his saddle horn, then slid to the ground. The thin man was on the ground, crawling for his dropped pistol. Jesse kicked it away, stood over him. "Water," the man gasped. "For the love of God!" Jesse looked down at him, this scavenger who'd have left a baby to die in the desert. "God's got nothing to do with it." He turned away, letting the man bleed out in the sand. Billy emerged from the rocks, Sam in his arms. "Check their supplies," Jesse said. The scavengers had water, 2 full canteens and a larger skin. Also food, ammunition, and $40 in mixed coins. Jesse took it all. The dead had no need of it, and the living, especially Sam, needed every advantage. They left the bodies for the buzzards, taking the horses. No time for burial, and these men deserved none anyway. The desert would claim them quick enough. As they rode on, Sam quiet in his sling, Jesse found himself thinking about Billy's words from that night by the fire. Good deeds don't wash out the bad. True enough. He'd just added 3 more names to his list, 3 more faces to remember. But when he looked down at Sam, alive because of those deaths, he couldn't find it in himself to feel sorry. Some men needed killing. That was the hard truth of this country. And if killing them meant Sam lived to see another day, then Jesse would face whatever judgment came. The sun set blood red behind distant mountains. They rode on through the cooling air, water sloshing in the stolen canteens, 3 dead men behind them and miles of desert ahead. "There," Billy said as full dark settled. "Lights." A town materialized out of the darkness, just a handful of buildings clustered around a well. Willow Springs. If Jesse's reckoning was right, they'd made it. "We go in careful," Jesse said. "Get supplies and get out. No drinking, no women, no trouble." Billy snorted. "When have I ever been trouble?" They entered the town slow, watchful. It was bigger than Jesse expected, maybe 24 buildings, including what looked like a proper general store. A few people moved on the street, but nobody paid them much mind. Just another pair of hard-traveled men in a land full of such. Jesse left Billy with the horses, and Sam entered the store alone. The proprietor was a round Mexican woman who eyed him suspicious but took his money ready enough. Baby bottles, proper nipples, canned milk, clean cloth for diapers, a small blanket that wasn't covered in trail dust. The $40 from the scavengers covered it with some left over. "Your baby?" the woman asked as she wrapped his purchases. "My nephew," Jesse lied smooth. "Taking him to the family in California." Her face softened. "Is hard. The desert with a little one. You are good uncle." If only she knew. Outside, Billy had found a quiet spot behind the livery to make camp. They fed Sam proper for the first time in days, using the new bottle. The baby drank eager, tiny hands gripping the bottle like he'd never let go. "We'll rest here tomorrow," Jesse decided. "Let Sam get his strength back. Let the horses recover." Billy nodded. "Might be we could find someone here, a woman to take him the rest of the way." Jesse looked at Billy sharp. "You changing your mind about this?" "No, just saying what you're already thinking." It was true. The thought had crossed Jesse's mind more than once. Find some decent family. Leave Sam and the gold certificates. Disappear into the territories. It would be easier, safer for everyone. But then he remembered the woman's eyes, the fierce grip of her hand. "Promise me he'll live." "We finish what we started," Jesse said, "all the way to San Francisco." Billy smiled that rare smile. "Figured you'd say that." They bedded down in the straw, Sam between them like some tiny prince guarded by the unlikeliest of nights. The baby slept peaceful, belly full, safe for now from the desert that had already tried so hard to claim him. Jesse lay awake, listening to the town sounds, a guitar somewhere, laughter from a cantina, a woman singing a lullaby in Spanish. Normal life, the kind he'd turned his back on years ago. Maybe, when this was over, he could find his way back to something like that. Maybe Sam's people would be grateful enough to help him start fresh somewhere. Maybe. Or maybe the desert would claim them all before they saw California. Either way, tomorrow they'd ride on. West, always west, toward whatever waited at the end of this long, hard trail. Sam stirred in his sleep, making small content sounds. Jesse touched the soft hair, felt the warmth of that tiny life. Worth it, he thought. Whatever comes, this is worth it. The stars wheeled overhead, marking time until dawn. The sandstorm hit them just past noon, a wall of brown fury that turned day to twilight. Jesse saw it coming, a dark line on the horizon that grew and grew until it blotted out the sky. "Get to those rocks," Billy shouted over the rising wind, pointing to an outcropping 50 yards off the trail. They spurred their horses hard, racing the storm. Jesse hunched over Sam, trying to shield him with his body. The baby was crying, scared by the sudden darkness and the howl of wind that sounded like all the demons of hell let loose. They made the rocks just as the storm engulfed them. Jesse swung down, clutching Sam tight, and pressed into a crevice between two boulders. Billy was right behind, dragging their saddlebags. The world disappeared. Sand filled the air thick as water, scouring exposed skin, finding every gap in their clothing. Jesse pulled his bandana up over his nose and mouth, tucked Sam's blanket tight around him. The baby's cries were lost in the roar. Billy pressed close, using his body to help shelter them. The horses huddled against the rocks, heads down, rumps to the wind. There was nothing to do but endure. Time lost meaning in that brown darkness. Could have been minutes or hours. Jesse's world narrowed to the warm weight of Sam against his chest and the rasp of his own breathing through the bandana. Sand worked its way into everything, ears, eyes, nose. His mouth tasted of grit and alkali. He felt Billy tense beside him, then relax. Thought he heard the older man praying, though the words were torn away by wind. Strange to think of Billy praying. But then, strange times called for strange measures. Sam had gone quiet, and fear spiked through Jesse. He loosened the blanket enough to check the baby's eyes were closed, but his chest still rose and fell. Just hiding from the world. Smart child. The storm raged on. Jesse's exposed skin felt raw, scoured down to nerve. His eyes streamed tears that turned to mud on his cheeks. Beside him, Billy coughed harsh and regular. Then, gradual as dawn, the wind began to ease. The air lightened from brownness to tan to dusty gold. The howling faded to a moan, then whispers, then silence. Jesse stayed still a moment longer, not trusting it. Then he struggled up, legs stiff, and looked around. The landscape had changed. Dunes stood where none had been before. Their trail was gone, erased like it never existed. One of the spare horses was down, half buried in sand, dead or dying. "Billy!" A groan. Then Billy emerged from their shelter, looking like he'd been carved from sandstone. Blood seeped from a dozen small cuts on his face and hands. "Still breathing," he rasped. Jesse unwrapped Sam careful. The baby blinked up at him, solemn as a judge. His face was protected, but grit had worked into the blanket. His clothes, everywhere. "Need to find water," Jesse said. "Clean him up." Billy nodded, moving to check the horses. 2 were still standing, including Scratch. The third was beyond help. Billy put it down with a single shot that echoed strange in the still air. Their water bags had held. Mostly, they used precious drops to clean Sam's face. Mix fresh formula. The baby drank eager, then promptly spit up half of it. "He's getting weaker," Billy observed. Jesse didn't need telling. Sam had lost weight, his little face going gaunt. The constant travel, the heat, the poor diet, it was wearing him down faster than it was them. How far to the next town? Billy studied the changed landscape, calculating. "Day and a half, maybe 2, if we can find the trail again." They loaded what they could onto the surviving horses, left the rest buried in sand, Billy's saddle among it, and most of their spare ammunition. They'd ride double now, taking turns walking. The sun beat down fierce as ever, like the storm had never happened. They picked their way through the new dunes, Billy reading sign Jesse couldn't see, following some internal compass. By evening, Jesse's feet were blistered raw. They'd found what might have been their old trail, or might have been wishful thinking. Sam hadn't kept any food down all day. They made camp in the lee of a mesa. No fire, just the stars for light. Jesse tried everything different mix ratios, tiny sips instead of full feeds, burping between every swallow. Nothing worked. Sam's cry was barely a whisper now. "He needs a doctor," Billy said quiet. "I know." "Jesse." "I know." The words came out harsh. Jesse gentled his voice. "I know, but knowing don't conjure doctors out of desert air." They sat in silence, passing Sam between them when their arms got tired. The baby barely weighed anything now, light as dried leaves. "I've been thinking," Billy said finally, "about what that Apache said, about names and new lives." Jesse waited. "My real name ain't Billy Younger. It's William Carlson. Billy Younger died 5 years ago in a shootout in Kansas. I took his name, his reputation. Easier than building my own." "Why tell me now?" "Because if we don't make it, someone should know. And because—" Billy looked down at Sam, sleeping fitful in his arms. "Because this child deserves truth from the men raising him, even temporary." Jesse considered this. "Jesse Hawthorne is my real name. Probably shouldn't be. Many times as I've wished I could shed it, but it's mine." "Your sister, the one who died, what was her baby's name?" The question surprised Jesse. He hadn't thought about that baby girl in years, had pushed that whole time down deep where it couldn't hurt. "Grace," he said soft. "Mary named her Grace." "Good name, hopeful." They were quiet again. In the distance, a coyote called, answered by another, the desert coming alive with night hunters. "We'll make it," Jesse said, not sure if he was trying to convince Billy or himself. "We have to." Dawn came pale and dusty. Sam wouldn't wake at first, and when he did, his eyes were dull. Jesse got a few drops of water into him. Nothing more. They rode on, Billy walking first while Jesse rode with Sam. The landscape was all wrong now. Familiar landmarks erased or moved. Twice they had to backtrack from box canyons that hadn't been there before. Midday, Billy stopped sudden. "Look!" Wagon tracks, fresh ones, cutting across their path. Not a full train, just 1 or 2 wagons, but where there were wagons, there might be water, food, help. They followed the tracks, moving faster now despite exhaustion. Around a bend, through a stand of Joshua trees, and there a single covered wagon, 2 men making camp. Jesse approached careful, Sam hidden in his coat. The men looked up, hands moving to weapons, then relaxing when they saw the state of the riders. "Lord Almighty," one said, "you boys look like hell warmed over." "Storm caught us." Jesse managed, "You got water?" "Course we do. Come on down." They were freighters, hauling supplies from Yuma to the mining camps. Good men. By the look of them, they shared water generous, didn't ask too many questions. "We got a sick baby," Jesse said finally. "Need to get him to a doctor." The older freighter, a grizzled man named Henderson, looked troubled. "Nearest doctor's in Gila Bend, 2 days northwest, but Army patrol came through yesterday. Said they're looking for 3 men who robbed a bank in Prescott. Shot 2 guards. Dangerous types. They said—" Jesse kept his face neutral. "That's so—" "Course, they said 3 men. You're only 2. And anybody can see you ain't dangerous to nothing but yourselves right now." Henderson spat tobacco juice. "Still, might be wise to swing south. Avoid Gila Bend altogether." "Can't," Billy said. "Baby won't make it going the long way." Henderson studied them a long moment. Then, let me see the child. Jesse hesitated, then pulled Sam out. The freighter's face went soft. Poor little mite. Wife and I lost 2 before they reached their first year. Desert's no place for babies. He looked at his partner. Tom, break out that medicine chest. They had laudanum, useless for a baby. Some patent medicines, probably more alcohol than help. But also clean cloths, soap, even a tin of condensed milk newer than theirs. Tell you what, Henderson said. We're heading to Gila Bend ourselves. You travel with us. Army won't look twice at family men with a freight wagon. Jesse met Billy's eyes. It was a risk. These men could turn them in for the bounty. But Sam needed help now, not in 3 days going the long way. We're obliged, Jesse said. They transferred to the wagon, horses tied behind. Sam lay on a makeshift bed of blankets. Henderson's partner Tom driving while Henderson himself tried to coax water into the baby. Had younger brothers. He explained. Know a few tricks. Jesse watched him work, gentle and patient, getting Sam to take tiny sips from a dampened cloth. More went in than had all day. You the father? Henderson asked. Uncle, Jesse said, sticking to his story. Taking him to family in California. Mother. Dead. Indian attack. Henderson nodded, asking nothing more. In this country, dead family was common as dust. They made good time. The wagon rode smoother than the trails Jesse and Billy had been following. As the sun set, they could see lights ahead. Gila Bend. Army's camped north of town, Henderson said. We'll go straight to Doc Morrison's place. He's on the south end. The town was bigger than Willow Springs, nearly a proper city. They rolled through streets lined with saloons and merchants, careful to keep their heads down. A few soldiers lounged outside a gambling house, but they barely glanced at the freight wagon. Doc Morrison's house sat apart from the main street, a neat frame building with a shingle out front. Henderson knocked while Jesse carried Sam, Billy watching the street. The door opened on a thin man with spectacles and the softest hands Jesse had ever seen on a male. Doc, Henderson said. Got a sick baby here. These men have been carrying him through the desert. The doctor took one look at Sam and stepped aside. Bring him in, quickly now. The next hour blurred together. The doctor examining Sam with instruments Jesse had no name for, asking sharp questions, mixing medicines. Jesse found himself praying again, harder than he had since Mary died. Finally, the doctor looked up. Dehydration, malnutrition, exposure. Another day and you'd have lost him. He fixed Jesse with a stare. He needs rest, real rest, not bouncing around on horseback. How long? 3 days minimum. A week would be better. Jesse's heart sank. 3 days in a town crawling with army. But looking at Sam, so small on the doctor's examining table, he knew there was no choice. There's a boarding house 2 streets over. The doctor said, Mrs. Chen runs it. Clean, quiet, no questions asked. Tell her I sent you. They paid the doctor with some of the scavengers' money, thanked Henderson and Tom, who wished them luck and asked no more questions. Good men, the kind that made Jesse think maybe the world wasn't all bad. Mrs. Chen's boarding house was as advertised. She took one look at Sam and put them in her best room, even brought up a cradle from somewhere. You rest, she said firm. Baby needs strong men, not tired ghosts. That night, Sam slept deep and peaceful for the first time in days. Jesse sat by the cradle, watching him breathe, while Billy kept watch by the window. The locket lay on the dresser, cleaned of sand and grit. Tomorrow Jesse would put it away safe again. Tomorrow they'd have to figure out how to avoid the army, how to get through the next 3 days without being recognized. But tonight, Sam was safe, fed, clean, with a real roof over his head and a soft bed beneath him. The promise still held. Jesse touched the turquoise amulet, then the baby's soft hair. Your mama would be proud. He whispered, You're tougher than any of us. Outside, a guitar played somewhere, and a woman's voice rose in a Mexican lullaby, the same kind of normal sounds from Willow Springs. But this time, Jesse was inside them, part of the regular world if only for a moment. Billy turned from the window. "Get some sleep. I'll wake you in 4 hours." Jesse stretched out on the bed, every muscle crying relief. Through the thin walls, he could hear other boarders, traveling salesmen, maybe miners, regular folks living regular lives. For 3 days, they'd pretend to be the same. Then back to the desert, back to running. But for now, Sam was healing, and that was enough. The promise held for another day. The fever came on their second night out of Gila Bend. Jesse woke to Sam's thin wailing, reached for him in the darkness, and felt the heat radiating off that tiny body like a stove. "Billy!" His voice cracked with fear. Billy was there instant, striking a match. In the flare of light, Sam's face was flushed dark, his breathing too fast, too shallow. "How bad?" Jesse's hands shook as he unwrapped the baby. Sam's skin was dry, burning. His eyes rolled back, showing white. "Bad." They were camped in a narrow canyon, 2 days' ride from anywhere, the nearest town behind them. Nothing but desert ahead. Jesse had seen fever take grown men in hours. A baby. "We go back," Billy said. "The army." "Damn the army!" Billy was already saddling the horses. "That child dies. Your promise dies with him." Jesse wrapped Sam in damp cloths, trying to cool him. The baby's cry had gone weak, more whimper than wail. Every breath seemed a struggle. They rode through the night, Jesse holding Sam against his chest, feeling that terrible heat through both their clothes. He talked constant. Nonsense mostly, just letting Sam hear his voice. "Your mama was beautiful. You know that had this way of tilting her head when she looked at you, like she was seeing right into your soul, and brave. Lord. But she was brave, held on just long enough to see you safe." The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. Billy pushed the horses hard, too hard, but Jesse didn't protest. Speed mattered more than horseflesh now. "My sister Mary, she had a baby girl. Grace, I told you about Grace. Would have been about 5 now, if the fever hadn't took them. Pretty little thing, all dark curls and dimples. Mary used to sing to her, this old hymn our mama taught us." He tried to remember the words, managed a few lines in a cracked voice. Sam stirred, fingers clutching weak at Jesse's shirt. "That's it, little man. You fight. You're tougher than all of us. Remember." Dawn found them still miles from town. The horses were stumbling, foam-flecked, about done. Sam had gone quiet, too quiet. Jesse could barely feel him breathing. "There," Billy pointed. Dust on the horizon. Riders, moving fast their way. Jesse's hand went to his gun, then stopped. No fight left in him, not with Sam dying in his arms. But it wasn't the army. 3 men in Mexican dress, wide-brimmed hats and serapes. They reined up hard, taking in the scene. "Por favor," Jesse said, dredging up what Spanish he had. "El niño está enfermo. The baby is sick." The oldest rider, a man with silver through his black beard, leaned forward. His eyes went from Sam to Jesse's desperate face. "See, I see. How long the fever?" "Since midnight, maybe before." The man said something rapid to his companions. One pulled a leather bag from his saddle. "I am Miguel Santos. These are my sons. We know this sickness. It takes many babies in the dry season." He dismounted, approaching careful. "May I?" Jesse hesitated, then held Sam out. The man's hands were gentle, knowing. He felt Sam's forehead, checked his eyes, pressed an ear to the tiny chest. "The fever burns too hot, without medicine." He didn't finish. "You have medicine?" Miguel looked back at his sons, seemed to make a decision. "Not here, but our ranch is close. 2 hours, maybe less. We have what the baby needs. Why help us? Miguel's face went sad. I have buried 3 children. My wife, she never recovered from the last. Now she helps every sick child God sends our way. Says it is her penance. He looked at Sam. This one, he has the look of a fighter, but he needs help now. Jesse looked at Billy, saw his own thoughts reflected. They were trusting strangers again. But what choice was there? Lead on, Jesse said. They rode hard, the Mexicans setting a pace that killed the horses but might save Sam. Jesse held on, whispering prayers and promises and pleas to anyone who might be listening. The ranch appeared like a mirage, adobe buildings clustered around a well, green gardens fighting back the desert. A woman emerged as they clattered into the yard, took one look at Sam, and began shouting orders. Mi amor, Miguel said. These men. I don't care if they're Pancho Villa himself. Bring the child. Rapido. She led them to a cool, dim room, a bed already prepared. Jesse laid Sam down reluctant, not wanting to let go. Out, the woman commanded. All of you, out. I need space to work. But, she fixed Jesse with eyes that brooked no argument. You want this baby to live? Then go. Pray if you know how. Otherwise, just go. They waited in the courtyard. Jesse pacing. Billy sitting still as stone. Miguel's sons brought water. Food they couldn't eat. Time crawled. She is very skilled, Miguel offered. Learned from her grandmother, who learned from hers. If anyone can save your boy. He's not my boy, Jesse said, then wondered why he'd said it. Sam felt like his now, had since that first moment in the burned wagon. No, then why do you risk so much? Jesse told him, brief as he could. The dying woman, the promise, the long trail to California. Miguel listened without judgment. A heavy burden, such a promise. Getting heavier every day. The sun climbed, peaked, began its descent. Jesse dozed in the shade, woke with a start every time. Sure he'd hear crying, but no sound came from the house. Finally, as shadows grew long, the woman emerged. Her face was drawn, tired, but not grieved. The fever broke, she said simply. Jesse's knees nearly buckled. He's all right. Not all right, not yet, but he will live, God willing. She fixed him with that stare again. You are the father. Jesse stopped. I'm what he's got. Something in her face softened. Come, he's asking for you. He can't ask, he's a baby. Babies have their ways. Sam lay in the big bed, so small against the white sheets. His color was better. The terrible flush faded to normal pink. When Jesse leaned over him, those blue eyes tracked to his face, and one tiny hand reached up. Jesse took that hand, swallowed hard against the tightness in his throat. Hey there, tough guy. You scared me pretty good. Sam's fingers curled around his grip stronger than it had been in days. He needs rest, the woman said. Real rest, not desert travel, a week at least. Another week, but looking at Sam, Jesse just nodded. The promise wasn't just to deliver a living body to San Francisco. It was to see this child safe, healthy, with a chance at the life his parents died trying to give him. We're grateful, ma'am, Billy said from the doorway. Whatever we can do to repay. You can start by telling me the truth, she said. My husband is too polite to ask, but I am not. Men like you. Anglo strangers carrying a Mexican baby through Apache country, running from something. What are you? Jesse met her eyes. We're outlaws. Ma'am, bank robbers. The law wants us for killing. She studied him long. And the child? Truly orphaned. Truly being taken to family. He pulled out the locket. Showed her the pictures inside. These were his parents. Good people, by all accounts. She took the locket, studied the faces. She was beautiful. Yes, ma'am. You know what I think. She handed back the locket. I think God has a sense of humor. Takes a baby's parents, then sends killers to save him. Makes those killers into something else. She touched Sam's forehead, checking for fever. You are not the same men who robbed that bank. We're still wanted. By the law, yes, but maybe not by God. She stood. You'll stay until he's strong. Help with the ranch work to pay your keep. My husband will show you. And so they stayed. Jesse learned to mend fences, tend gardens, fix what needed fixing. Billy helped with the horses, having a gift for gentling even the wildest colts. And Sam grew stronger each day. Tended by the woman Maria was her name, with a devotion that made Jesse understand about those 3 lost children. Why didn't you ever have more? Jesse asked her one evening, as she taught him how to properly feed Sam. After the 3rd died, something broke inside me. Here. She touched her chest. The body still functioned, but the heart... She looked at Sam. Maybe that's why God sent him. One last chance to save a child. He's not yours to keep, Jesse said gentle. His people are waiting. I know. That's what makes it bearable. I can love him without the fear. She smiled, sad and wise. You understand this. I think Jesse did. Every day Sam grew stronger was a day closer to goodbye, but that was the promise to deliver him safe to family, not to keep him. On the 6th night, Miguel found them in the barn, checking their gear. You leave tomorrow. Not a question. Jesse nodded. The army patrol came through today, asking about 3 Anglo men with a baby. I told them nothing, but others might. We're grateful for all you've done. Miguel waved that away. My wife has smiled more this week than in 3 years. That is payment enough. He pulled out a folded paper. This is a map. Shows water holes, safe camps, which towns to avoid. We'll get you to the Colorado River. Jesse took it, seeing the careful detail, the notes in Spanish. This must have taken hours. My sons helped. They like you, despite yourself. Miguel smiled. Go with God. Jesse Hawthorne, may you find what you seek at journey's end. That night, Jesse sat by Sam's bed one last time in a real house. The baby slept peaceful, cheeks round with health, breathing easy. Hard to believe this was the same child who'd burned with fever just days ago. Your mama would be so proud. Jesse whispered, You've come so far, fought so hard, just a little farther now. He pulled out the stolen bank certificates, counted them again. $2,300. Enough to set Sam up proper with his grandfather's people. Enough maybe to convince them not to ask too many questions about the men who brought him. Billy appeared in the doorway. Best get some sleep. Long ride tomorrow. Jesse nodded, but didn't move. Something Maria had said stuck with him. Not the same men who robbed that bank, maybe not. But what were they now? Not good men, surely. Good men didn't have 6 names, now 9 written in a little book. Good men didn't live looking over their shoulders. But maybe, just maybe, they were men trying to be better. Men who'd kept a promise when breaking it would have been easier. Men who'd learned that some things mattered more than gold or freedom or even life. Jesse, Billy's voice was gentle. He'll be there come morning. Jesse stood, touched Sam's hair one last time. Tomorrow they'd be back on the trail, back to running. But tonight, in this borrowed peace, he let himself believe they might actually make it. Might actually see this child safe to San Francisco. This promise kept against all odds. The desert waited, vast and unforgiving, but they'd crossed half of it already. And Sam had survived fever and storm and a dozen other dangers. Tough little fighter, just like his mama knew he'd be. One more push, one more test, then maybe, at journey's end, some kind of redemption for men who'd thought themselves beyond saving. Jesse followed Billy out, leaving Sam to sleep in peace, dreaming whatever dreams babies dream when they're safe and loved and fighting their way home. The town materialized out of the heat shimmer like something from a fever dream. Salvation Ridge last stop before the Colorado River. Last chance for supplies before the final push to California. Jesse shifted Sam in his arms, the baby awake and watchful after the long morning's ride. They'd been traveling hard for 3 days since leaving the Santos Ranch, following Miguel's map, avoiding the main trails. Now they had no choice but to risk a town. "Don't like it," Billy said, studying the main street through field glasses. "Too many horses tied up, too many men standing around doing nothing." Jesse saw it too, the kind of careful casualness that meant trouble. But their water was near gone, the milk powder running low, and Sam needed proper food. "We go in separate," Jesse decided. "You first, get supplies. I'll follow with Sam. Play the grieving widower heading home." Billy lowered the glasses. "And if it's a trap?" "Then we do what we always do. We survive." They waited until the afternoon heat drove most folks indoors. Then Billy rode in alone. Jesse watched from a bluff, Sam quiet in his arms, counting the minutes. 10, 20, 30. Too long. Billy should have been out by now. Jesse was reaching for his rifle when he saw movement. Billy emerging from the general store, moving normal, unhurried. He loaded his saddlebags, mounted up, rode out nice and easy. Jesse waited another 20 minutes, then made his own approach. The town looked drowsier now. Just a few old-timers sitting in shade, a dog sleeping in the street. He pulled his hat low, adjusted Sam's blanket to hide most of his face. The general store was dim and cool after the blazing sun. A thin man with nervous eyes stood behind the counter. "Help you?" "Need milk powder," Jesse said, pitching his voice different, weary. "And crackers if you got 'em. Boy's been poorly." The man's eyes flicked to Sam, back to Jesse. "Coming or going?" "Going back to Tucson, wife's family. Sorry for your loss." Jesse just nodded, playing the grieving husband. The storekeeper gathered supplies, talking the whole time about nothing weather, Indians, the price of silver. Jesse half listened, watching the street through the window. That's when he saw them. 2 men, trying too hard to look casual, working their way toward the store. One kept touching his gun, nervous habit of someone expecting trouble. "That be all?" the storekeeper asked. "Yeah." Jesse paid, gathered his goods. "Back door." The man's eyes widened. "I don't want no trouble, mister." "Neither do I. Back door." A pause. Then the storekeeper jerked his head toward a curtained doorway. "Through the storeroom, but Mr." Jesse was already moving. Through the curtain, past barrels and crates, out into an alley that stank of garbage and horse droppings. He could hear voices from the front now, sharp questions. Sam chose that moment to cry. Jesse pressed the baby close, moving fast down the alley. His horse was tied out front, no good now. Have to go on foot, find Billy, figure something out. A shout behind him. Running feet. Jesse turned down another alley, then another, trying to put distance between them. Sam's crying grew louder, echoing off adobe walls. Might as well ring a dinner bell. Dead end. Wall too high to climb, especially carrying Sam. Jesse turned back, found 3 men blocking the alley mouth. "Well now," the leader said. "Jesse Hawthorne. Thought that might be you, though the posters don't mention no baby." Jesse set down his supplies careful, freed his gun hand while keeping Sam secure with the other. "Walk away. This doesn't concern you. $2,000 bounty says different, dead or alive. Poster says." The man smiled. "Dead's easier. There's a baby here." "I can see that. Mexican brat, by the look, probably stolen." The smile widened. "Be doing it a favor. Really, better dead than raised by the likes of you." Jesse saw it in their eyes. They'd already decided. The talking was just working up nerve. His hand moved to his gun, knowing he couldn't outdraw 3 men, not holding Sam. The shot came from above. The leader spun and fell, clutching his shoulder. Another shot, and the second man's gun flew from his hand. The third dove for cover as Billy appeared on a rooftop, rifle steady. A Jesse move. Jesse ran, back through the alleys, Sam wailing, Billy's rifle cracking behind him. Around a corner, and there was Billy's horse, Scratch tied alongside. "Can you ride?" Billy called, sliding down from the roof. "Do I have a choice?" They mounted up. Jesse awkward with Sam and the supplies. Billy led, taking them through back streets, away from the shouting that was spreading through town. They cleared the last buildings at a gallop, hitting open desert. Jesse looked back, saw dust rising pursuit forming up. But they had a lead, and Miguel's map showed water ahead, off the main trail. They rode hard for an hour, until the town disappeared behind heat shimmer and distance. Then Billy pulled up, listening. Lost them for now, but they'll be coming. Jesse checked Sam, who'd cried himself into exhausted sleep. The wild ride couldn't be good for him, but better than bullets. "How'd you know?" Jesse asked. "Saw them watching when I left. Figured they were waiting for something. Or someone." Billy reloaded his rifle methodical. "Should have listened to my gut, stayed clear. We needed supplies." "What we need is to stop leaving trails of bodies across the territory." Billy's voice carried rare heat. 9 men dead since we started this fool's errand. How many more before we're done?" Jesse had no answer. The numbers weighed on him too, each death adding to a tally he'd carry forever. But looking at Sam, peaceful now despite everything, he couldn't regret the choice. They found Miguel's waterhole as the sun touched the horizon, a spring hidden in a cluster of rocks, invisible from the main trail. They watered the horses, filled their bags, washed the dust from Sam's face. "They'll expect us to run for the river," Billy said. "Straight west." "So we go south, follow the border, cross at Yuma maybe." "Adds days, and Yuma's got law too." "Then we cross wild, find a shallow spot." Billy considered. "River's low this time of year. Might work." He looked at Jesse. "You know, once we cross, we're in California. Different laws, different troubles." "Same promise." They rested until full dark, then rode on by starlight. Jesse had gotten good at riding with Sam, learned to cushion the baby against the worst jolts, to shift his weight smooth in the saddle. Sam had adapted too, sleeping through what would have terrified most children. 2 days later, they smelled the river before they saw it, green growing things after so much dry. The Colorado stretched before them, wide and brown, moving steady toward the Gulf. They scouted upstream until they found what looked like a crossing, a stretch where the river spread out, running shallow over gravel bars, still deep enough to swim the horses in places, but manageable. "We'll wrap everything in oilcloth." Billy said, "Keep the powder dry. I'll take the pack horses across first. Make sure it's clear." Jesse watched him go. The horses swimming strong, Billy steady in the saddle. He made the far bank, raised a hand, all clear. Jesse wrapped Sam careful in the oilcloth, leaving room for air but protecting against water. The baby fussed but didn't cry, those blue eyes trusting even now. "Almost there, little man." Jesse whispered, "Your mama's promise is almost kept." He urged Scratch into the water. The horse went willing enough, used to rivers from their outlaw days. The water rose, cold despite the desert heat, soaking through Jesse's clothes. Halfway across, Scratch stumbled, went under. Jesse kicked free of the saddle, holding Sam high, fighting the current, his boots filled with water, dragging him down. The rifle sling tangled around his leg. "Can't drop Sam, can't let go." He kicked harder, lungs burning. The current had them now, sweeping downstream. Through water-blurred vision, he saw Billy riding along the bank, looking for a place to help. Jesse's boots touched bottom. He pushed off, got his head above water, gasped air. Sam was crying good, meant he was breathing. Another push, another gasp, and Billy was there, chest deep in the water, reaching. "Give him to me." Jesse passed Sam over, then fought his way to shallow water. He crawled onto the bank, coughing water, every muscle shaking. Billy had Sam unwrapped, checking him over. The baby was wet, scared, but unharmed. His cries echoed across the water, announcing their survival to the world. "Scratch?" Jesse asked when he could speak. "Made it out downstream. He's tough as his rider." Billy handed Sam back. Though maybe not as lucky, they made camp there, too exhausted to go farther. Everything had to be dried, cleaned, checked. The bank certificates were soaked but intact, the ink running but still readable. Sam's locket had survived, along with the turquoise amulet. "California," Billy said, looking at the far shore. "Never thought I'd see it." "Not done yet. Still gotta reach San Francisco." "After what we've been through, that'll be the easy part." Jesse wasn't so sure. They were entering unknown territory now, where their reputation might not have spread, but where they'd stand out more to trail-worn men carrying a baby, paying with water-damaged banknotes. But they'd come this far, through desert and storm, fever and pursuit. Sam had survived it all, growing stronger, tougher, his mother's determination living on in that tiny body. "You ever think what you'll do after?" Billy asked. "Once the boy's delivered." Jesse had been trying not to think about it. The promise was what drove him, gave shape to his days. Without it, maybe head to Mexico, start over where nobody knows Jesse Hawthorne. The rurales know Jesse Hawthorne. Canada, then, or maybe take a ship somewhere. China, Australia. Billy smiled. "Can't picture you in China." "Can't picture myself anywhere anymore, except on the trail with this baby." They were quiet then, listening to the river's song, Sam's breathing, the vast silence of the desert night. Somewhere behind them, men with guns and badges. Somewhere ahead, a city by a cold ocean, people who'd take Sam and raise him proper. And somewhere between, two outlaws who'd found something worth more than gold or freedom. Found it in a dying woman's eyes, a baby's trusting grip, a promise that became heavier and more precious with each hard mile. "Best get some sleep," Billy said finally. "Long way yet to San Francisco." Jesse lay back, Sam warm on his chest, and watched the stars. The same stars that had witnessed Dutch's death, the Apache's blessing, Maria's healing hands, the same stars that would watch over Sam long after Jesse was gone. The promise would be kept, whatever it cost. Whoever stood in their way, the promise would be kept. The river sang them to sleep, and in the morning, they'd continue west, toward journey's end. San Francisco rose from the morning fog like something out of a dream. Jesse had never seen a city so large. Buildings climbing the hills, ships crowding the harbor, more people on one street than in most territories entire. Sam stirred against his chest, eyes wide at all the new sights and sounds. They'd been traveling for 3 weeks since crossing the Colorado, working their way north through California's Central Valley, avoiding main roads when they could. Garrett Import Company. Billy read from a painted sign. Wholesale and retail. Established 1867. He looked at Jesse. "This is it." Jesse sat his horse in the busy street, suddenly uncertain. For so long, the journey had been everything. Now, faced with its end, he found himself reluctant. "You all right?" Billy asked. "Just thought it would feel different. Thought I'd be ready." Billy understood. They'd both changed on this journey, shaped by miles and duty and the weight of one small life. The men who'd robbed that bank in Prescott seemed like strangers now. Jesse dismounted careful, Sam awake and alert in his arms. The baby had grown in their weeks together, face filling out, eyes bright with curiosity. He reached for Jesse's face, tiny fingers patting his cheek. "None of that now," Jesse said rough. "You're going home." The building was impressive, 3 stories of brick and glass, with well-dressed men coming and going. Jesse felt every mile of trail dust on his clothes, every day of sun and wind on his face. "Want me to come?" Billy offered. "No, this is mine to finish." Jesse climbed the steps, pushed through heavy doors into a world of polished wood and soft voices. A clerk looked up, took in Jesse's appearance, his expression cooling. "Deliveries around back," he said. "I'm not delivering goods. I need to see Mr. Garrett about his son." The clerk's eyes widened. "Mr. Samuel Garrett died 4 months ago. Apache attack on the Tucson Road." "I know. I was there." Jesse shifted Sam. "This is his son, Thomas James Garrett. I promised his mother I'd bring him here." The clerk stared, then fled toward the back offices. Moments later, an older man emerged gray-haired, well-fed, with Samuel Garrett's eyes. "I'm James Garrett," he said. "You have news of my son." Jesse told it simple, no wasted words. The attack, the dying woman, the promise. Sam fussed, and Jesse bounced him automatic. The motion second nature now. The elder Garrett's face went through a dozen changes: grief, disbelief, hope. "May I?" He held out his hands. Jesse hesitated. This was it. The moment he'd traveled 800 miles for. He passed Sam over, watched those small hands reach curious for a new face. "He has my son's eyes," Garrett whispered, "and his mother's hair." He looked at Jesse. "You saved him. Brought him all this way." "Gave my word. Men have broken their word for less." Garrett studied Jesse closer. "You're not what I expected. When you said you were there, we were passing through. Wrong place. Right time, maybe. And you've asked for nothing, no reward." Jesse pulled out the bank certificates, water-stained and worn. "These were in my saddlebags. Consider them payment for his raising. Make sure he gets schooling, opportunities, things his parents wanted for him." Garrett looked at the certificates, understanding dawning. "These are from the Prescott robbery. You're Jesse Hawthorne." Jesse met his eyes steady. "I am." "The law says you killed 2 guards." "The law says a lot of things." They stood there, 2 men from different worlds, a baby between them. Then Garrett did something unexpected. He handed Sam back to Jesse. "He's comfortable with you, more than with me." He gestured to chairs. "Sit. Tell me about my grandson's journey." So Jesse told it. Not everything, not the killing, not the worst of their fear, but enough. Dutch dying, the Apache blessing, the Mexican family's kindness, Sam surviving storm and fever and river crossing. "He's tough," Jesse finished. "Like his mother. She held on just long enough to see him safe." "What was she like? I only met her once. At the wedding." Jesse thought back to that terrible day. The woman's fierce eyes. Brave, determined. She loved your son, loved this baby. Her last thoughts were for his future. Garrett wiped his eyes with a silk handkerchief. "And you, what are your plans?" "Move on, disappear. Let Sam grow up without the shadow of outlaws over him." "That's not what I meant." Garrett stood, walked to a window overlooking the busy street. "You saved my grandson, risked your life, changed your life. For a promise to a stranger, that matters. Not to the law. Perhaps, but it matters to me." He turned back. "I have ships, Mr. Hawthorne. Ships that sail to places where a man might start fresh. Australia, Hong Kong, places where Jesse Hawthorne never existed." Jesse looked down at Sam, who'd fallen asleep trusting as always. "Why?" "Because my grandson will grow up knowing his parents died trying to give him a better life. I want him to also know that hard men became good men to keep him safe, that redemption is possible even in the darkest places." The office door opened. Billy entered, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable among all the finery. "This your partner?" Garrett asked. "Billy Younger. He kept us alive more times than I can count." Garrett nodded. "The offer extends to both of you. Passage anywhere my ships go. Money to start over. It's not charity, it's payment for services rendered. For bringing my grandson home." Billy looked at Jesse, a whole conversation in that glance. "I need to hold him one more time," Jesse said. He took Sam back, felt that familiar weight. The baby slept on, unaware this was goodbye. Jesse touched the soft hair, memorized the tiny features, the way those small fingers curled. "There's a locket," he said finally. "Pictures of his parents. And this," he showed the turquoise amulet. "For protection. An Apache blessing. I'll keep them safe for him," Garrett promised. "When he's old enough, I'll tell him the whole story. How outlaws became his guardian angels." Jesse kissed Sam's forehead, breathed in that baby smell one last time. Then he handed him over, final and complete. "His name is Sam now," he said. "Samuel Thomas Garrett. Sam for every day. The Apache elder said he needed a new name for his new life." "Sam," Garrett tested it. "I like it. Strong name for a strong boy." Jesse turned to go, stopped at the door. "Make sure he knows his mother loved him. Make sure he knows she tried." "I will. You have my word." Garrett smiled sad. "I've learned what promises mean to men like you." Outside, the city noise seemed too loud after the desert's silence. Jesse stood on the sidewalk, feeling untethered, purposeless for the first time in months. "So," Billy said, "Australia. You want to go to Australia?" "I want to go where we're not hunted men, where we can be something other than what we've been." They walked toward the harbor, two outlaws without a mission, behind them, in that fine building. Sam would grow up safe. He'd have books and schooling and opportunities. He'd become a man his parents would be proud of. "You did it," Billy said. "Kept your promise." "We did it." "No, this was yours from the start. I just came along for the ride." They found Garrett's shipping office at the harbor, presented the letter he'd given them. Within hours, they had passage booked on a ship leaving with the tide. New names on the manifest, new lives waiting across the ocean. As the ship pulled away from San Francisco, Jesse stood at the rail, watching the city fade into fog. Somewhere in those hills, Sam was beginning his new life. Somewhere behind them, the desert held their secrets, graves, and ghost towns, and the echo of promises kept. "You all right?" Billy asked. Jesse thought about it. The weight he'd carried for so long was gone, but it had left its mark. He was not the same man who'd ridden into that burned wagon train. That Jesse Hawthorne was dead as surely as if they'd buried him with Dutch. "I'm ready," he said finally. "Ready to see who I might be without a gun on my hip and a price on my head." The ocean stretched endless before them, vast as any desert, but holding different promises. Jesse touched his pocket where he'd kept the locket, found it empty, and smiled. Everything was where it belonged. Sam would grow up loved, educated, wealthy. He'd never know hunger or thirst or the terror of being hunted. He'd never know the weight of taking another man's life. The promise was kept. The debt was paid. And somewhere, Jesse hoped, a brave woman rested easy knowing her son lived on. The fog swallowed San Francisco, and Jesse Hawthorne sailed toward whatever redemption waited beyond the horizon, carrying nothing but memory and the knowledge that once, when it mattered most, he'd been the man a dying mother needed him to be. Thank you for listening to this story from the Wild West. If you enjoyed following Jesse and baby Sam's journey across the desert, please let us know in the comments where you're listening from. We'd love to connect with fellow Western story enthusiasts around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to From Wild West channel for more tales of redemption, courage, and the untamed frontier. Share your thoughts about Jesse's transformation and what touched you most about this story. Until next time, partners.